Hi there, everyone, and welcome to Paper Wishes Weekly Webisodes. I'm Sarah Newman, and I'm so excited to bring you today's techniques featuring fabulous supplies from our friends at Creative Expressions. Today, we've got some brand new dies, including a beautiful Filigree Butterfly die that's perfect as a card focal. Also, 3 sentiment dies on your special day. Thanks and happy birthday. Now the thanks and the happy birthday, as you can see, are layering dies. So that's going to give you a beautiful shadow effect. Now, very exciting, we also have 8 beautiful colors of luster polish. And these are so much fun to work with, especially in combination with the dies that we're showing you today. So as you can see, we have a lot to share with you today. So come play with us. Let's start with these 8 colors of luster polish. So we have Bubblegum, Violet Vibe, Apple Fizz, Tango Tease, Tantalizing Teal, Lemon Sherbet, Raspberry Sorbet, and Blue Allure. Now you can use any of these individually and you can combine them for so many different effects. But for now, let's take a look at just one of them. So I'm going to roll aside all of my luster polishes except for the Bubblegum. Now, luster polish is a water-based, fast-drying pigment medium, and it's got mica flakes in it. And I think as I hold this, you can see that beautiful shine on here. It's going to give you a really soft, shimmering look. There are lots of ways that you can apply it, and in this video, I'm going to show you 4 different techniques. But let's start with number 1, which is the easiest application. And that's using the applicator that is included in your luster polish. So you can see I just popped out this fun little sponge with a nice handle on here. When you get your luster polish, you're going to need to remove this little band here, and you can just pop that out with a pair of old scissors like I did. And that's going to allow you to release your sponge, which will of course be a lot cleaner than my well-used one here. Now I'm going to bring in a piece of white cardstock and just show you the simple way of applying this. I'm going to undo the top here and just dip my applicator straight into this medium. Now I'm going to scrape off some of the excess of that luster polish off on the side just because I don't need to have a whole lot to make a really effective look. I've got a piece of smooth white cardstock here and I'm just going to apply this straight on. Take a look at that shine. It is so beautiful. Soft and shimmery. It's not a high glitter effect, but you do get that really lovely shine. Now, what about on black cardstock? Well, I'm glad you asked. So I've got a piece of black cardstock here. Again, just dip this in, scrape off any of the excess, and apply this on here. So take a look at that. Absolutely beautiful. Now with these 2, you just need to let them dry and they won't take very long at all. Then you can use them as your backgrounds. You can also die cut them. You could even stamp onto this as well. So lots of different effects that you can do. Now this is with the bubblegum, but let's take a look at some of the other colors that we have today. So let's start off. This is the Blue Allure. You can see it on black and on white. Then we have the Violet Vibe, another really beautiful effect. Here's the Lemon Sherbet. I love that on the black. I think that's stunning. And the Raspberry Sorbet. We also have the Tango Tease, really dramatic. The Apple Fizz, which is beautiful. Here's the Tantalizing Teal, spelt in the English way with the S because Creative Expressions is a company based in the UK. And then here we are coming out to our bubblegum color that we saw at the very beginning. So this is the application number 1, just putting it straight on with that sponge applicator included in each one of the luster polish jars. But there are lots of other ways that you can apply it. So let's take a look at some of those. You've seen how easy it is to simply use the applicator to smooth your luster polish onto your cardstock. Well, another great thing about this applicator is its shape. So this really fun circular design can also be used to create a polka dot background, which is the second technique that I want to share with you. So I'm using, let's see, this is the Raspberry Sorbet. And I've got a piece of smooth white cardstock here. What I'm going to do, just take out this applicator dip it into my luster polish. Now for this technique, what you want to do is make sure you get the luster polish on here, but not around the edges. So you want to make sure to sort of scrape off any excess from the outside edge of your circular applicator. Then what you can do is simply pop it down onto your cardstock. You're going to give it a gentle press and a bit of a twist, and then lift straight up, and you will have a polka dot design. So then what you can do is come back, add a little bit more luster polish to your sponge, and simply add more polka dots, as many as you want. Now, simply pressing, twisting, and lifting. If you find that you have little bald areas in here that you want to add a little bit more color to, you can come back and do the same process. You can also just sort of dab on a little bit more of that luster polish from the applicator. As many dots or as few as you want to, and then just let that dry, and you've got a really fun background effect. And this won't take very long to dry. In fact, just a couple of minutes should do it. This is a really nice fast drying medium. So this is with the raspberry, but I also wanted to show you a piece that I have that's already dry using the blue Allure. Now what I think is really fun about this is that you've already got a great background for your cards or whatever other paper crafts you're doing. And in fact, I'm going to grab the Filigree Butterfly, and I've die cut this from some pink cardstock. And if I just pop this down, maybe overlapping a couple of those dots, and then I'm going to grab the Thanks, which I've die cut from some black cardstock, and put this down as well. And I think already I've got a really fun start to a quick and easy card. So this technique is great for creating a sort of modern, fun, bright, and colorful background, one that can be used for lots of different occasions. So this is our second application technique. Our third is going to get a little bit messier, and this is going to be combining two different colors of luster polish, and I have the Apple Fizz and Tantalizing Teal, two of my very favorites. Also for this technique, I want to have my palette knife on hand, and I have a water mister on hand as well. So what I'm going to do is, just working onto my craft sheet, I'm going to scoop out a little bit. This is the Apple Fizz. I'm going to scoop this out and just apply it straight down onto my craft sheet. Now, my friend Lene describes the consistency of luster polish as being a bit like pudding, and I think that's a great way to describe it. You can see that it's got some nice body. It's not runny. It's perfect for doing so many different application techniques. So I've got the Apple Fizz here. I'll put the lid back on that, and I'm going to clean off my palette knife in between uses just so I don't contaminate the colors, and get some of this Tantalizing Teal and put a little bit of that onto my craft sheet as well. And then what I'm going to do is use my palette knife to smooth out this color. So I want to create a patch of color on my craft sheet. I don't want them entirely blended to make one color. I want to keep the two colors somewhat separated, but also just overlapping a little bit. I'm going to leave some empty areas in here too. And then what I'll do is mist a little bit with water. So I've just done 2 quick spritzes of water there. And I'm going to grab a piece of smooth white cardstock, and I'm going to simply place this on here. And tap this gently to make sure that I've got contact with that beautiful medium. And then I'm going to lift this straight up. And you can see I've got a beautiful multicolored effect. Absolutely stunning. And I've also got a little bit of texture here because I lifted the cardstock up rather than sliding it through the medium. So then all I need to do is let this dry. If I find that I have too much white area here, if I want to add a little bit more color, that's quite easy to do. So I'll just go back and tap in any other areas that I want to add color to. So this is stunning on the white cardstock. Let's take a look at black cardstock and see how this will come out. So again, just press that right into that medium, lift it up, and take a look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. And this would be a beautiful background. Also, you could do your die cutting from it. You could do lots of other techniques. So this is using 2 colors to create this effect. I also had one piece that I did. I'll show you here. This is just using bubble gum. So this is just a single color. So you can do 1 color, you can do 2 colors, you could even work in a 3rd color if you wanted to as well. So this is our second application technique. Now in real life, I would take advantage of this beautiful puddle of gorgeous color, but for now I'm going to clean this up and come back and show you something else. Okay, so my craft sheet is clean and my hands are clean-ish. Luster polish is really easy to clean up with a baby wipe or a damp cloth or soap and water. So I'm ready to move on to the 4th technique I want to show you. But before we do that, I wanted to show you a happy accident that just happened. When I was cleaning off my craft sheet with a baby wipe, I ended up with a lot of that luster polish on my baby wipe, and I thought, oh, I can't let that go to waste. So I just grabbed a piece of white cardstock, took that crumpled up baby wipe and pounced it onto the cardstock. And I think this is going to give a really cool patterned effect as well. So you get a sharper sort of pattern on here in contrast to the craft sheet press that we did just a minute ago. So same colors, same proportions, just a completely different look. So we'll consider that happy accident just as a bonus technique. So let's move on to the 4th technique I want to share with you, which is watercolor. So for this, I'm going to, again, use 2 different colors. I have bubblegum and I have the Violet Vibe. And the brush that I'm working with is just a plain craft paintbrush. You don't need anything fancy. It's about 3/4 of an inch across, and as you can see, it's quite narrow. So this is a flat brush. I'm going to be using my craft sheet also as my palette, and I do need to have a palette knife on hand as well. I'm just going to get a little bit of each of those colors out here on my craft sheet. So that's the violet. I want to make sure to clean off my palette knife in between as well, so I'm not contaminating my colors. And here's some of the bubble gum. Put that down as well. And I'm also going to add a little bit of water. I'm going to put a kind of puddle of water next to each one of these colors. And I'm going to use my palette knife to mix that watery wash. And I find that using the palette knife for this, it works a lot better than using the brush to make your blended wash, because the luster polish is a bit thick and it can get your paintbrush a bit gummy if you're going directly into it. Doesn't blend quite as nicely. So you've got the palette knife on hand. This will work beautifully. Okay, so I have some really nice watercolors on here. Then I'm going to grab my brush and just pick up some of the watery bubblegum and simply paint this onto my white cardstock. Now you can do 1 stroke, you can go over it if you want to, just depends on the look you want. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space here. I'll create an alternating stripe and come back and do another one. If you find that you have a bit of a blob on there like I just did, just come back and smooth that out. And let's see, we'll try and go for a 3rd one over here too. Okay, now I want to make sure to clean off my brush. I'm going to pop that into a jar of water that I have on hand, and then come back and add the violet as my alternating. And just paint that right on there. And then I've got a really fun watercolor effect. Now, I can't let this go to waste either, of course. So since I've got my brush in hand and I've got this beautiful watery puddle of violet, I'm going to load up my brush again, hold it perpendicular over my cardstock, and I'm going to give a couple of taps. And that's going to give me a really beautiful spattered effect. Now, you don't have to do this one, but I think it's another great technique to have on hand with your luster polish. So what I wanted to show you also is that you can combine these 2 colors together and simply stroke them onto white cardstock, and you'll get a really soft blended look like you can see here. You can also just work with 1 color, and in this case, I've got this bubblegum piece that I've just mounted onto a piece of black cardstock. This is dry, so I think you can see that lovely shimmer and shine on there. Now, if I wanted to, again, I could just grab a couple of the die cuts from today's webisode and maybe have a black butterfly that I popped down on here. And let me pull out that thanks that I used earlier. And maybe we can set this one down on here. Again, maybe a few rhinestones or some sequins on here. And I think you've got the start to a really nice card. Again, quite quick and easy as well. So we've done watercoloring, we've done polka dot making, we've done a craft sheet press, blending 2 colors of luster polish together, and we've even had a couple of bonus techniques in there as well. So as you can see, there are a lot of different ways that you can apply your luster polish onto your cardstock. So now that we've explored some of those, why don't we take a look at some card projects? Our first card project features a really simple tone-on-tone effect that's easy to get with a single color of luster polish. So in this case, I use the Apple Fizz, applying it directly onto black cardstock with that sponge applicator. I also applied it onto white cardstock, and I used that piece as a border. I also used it to die cut my sentiment on here. Now, one element I want to be sure and point out is this beautiful filigree die cut that you can see here. So this is one that we've been talking a lot about, and it makes such a beautiful card focal or an accent piece. The size of it is about 2.5 inches by 2.25, and it's just a beautiful and elegant element for so many different occasions. Now, one nice thing about the Filigree Butterfly is with the packaging, you've also got some project ideas on the inside here too. So if you're ever stumped for some ways that you can use your beautiful Filigree Butterfly, just take a look at the packaging. So this is our first card project and our first application technique. Now, the second application we looked at was creating some fun polka dot designs with our luster polish, and that's what I've done here using the blue Allure. I've also used it to create my background piece here, and that was simply using the sponge applicator to sweep it onto some white cardstock. Now for my thanks, this is the Tango Tease, and I've used this with my die cut with the word thanks. The background is just a simple gray cardstock. I did want to show you a little closer look with that die though, because these 2 dies in today's webisode work in the same way. So the thanks and the happy birthday. You'll notice here it says contains 2 dies. Well, you're getting the sentiment. You're also getting kind of a shadow effect on here too, which is a really nice way to add some extra oomph to your sentiments. So I wanted to show you how that works. You're going to get 2 dies. So you've got the shadow and then you've got the more scripty word. So when you die cut this, you'll end up with 2 elements that look like this. Now, of course, you could use the thanks as it is in any way you want, but they are meant to be layered one on top of the other. And then you can use some wet adhesive or some double-sided tape to attach the 2 of these together, like so. And then you've got a really fun dimensional effect. So that's how both the thanks and the happy birthday will work out. Now, the other way you can use the thanks is, as I've done with this card focal, and simply die cutting the word from your background piece. Now, this is also a piece of Tango Tease, and I've just applied that right onto white cardstock and then die cut the word from that and made sure to take the innies from the die and glue them in to fill in those empty areas. Now, the background that I've done on here is that craft sheet press, and I used the raspberry as well as the lemon to create this background. I'll tilt this a little bit so you can see that shine. That's of course done on black cardstock and just makes such a beautiful background. I absolutely love this. Now for our 4th card project, using our 4th technique, here's our watercolor stripes. And of course this is using the violet and the bubblegum. And I've also done some spattering with the bubblegum to create the background. Now, the sentiment that I have here is on your special day. This is, again, one of the dies from today's webisode. And this one works for so very many different occasions. It could be birthday, it could be wedding, it could be so many different card-giving occasions that you can use this for. And I think you can find many card-giving occasions that you can use any of these luster polish techniques with. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being a part of the Paper Wishes family. Please be sure and leave a comment on today's video. I would love to know what you think. Each item that you see here today can be purchased separately. However, we've also bundled them into a creative money saver just for you. For the money saver, just see this webisode on paperwishes.com.